After the end of the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, did you wish to see her on your TV screens once more? Well, that wish has been granted by Riverdale. Our favorite witch is back in action, and there's plenty more to see. Let's talk more about her involvement in the episode and why she was even there in the first place. First off, are Greendale and Riverdale different? To be able to talk more about how Sabrina ended up with Archie and the gang in Riverdale, it's very important to understand the connection between the shows. The biggest connection there in the show is that Riverdale and Greendale are neighboring towns, but extremely different in terms of the occurrences and the people. Opposite Riverdale is located on the Sweetwater River. There lies a neighboring town called Greendale. It is the same place where Jason and Cheryl crossed over from Riverdale to allow Jason to fake his death and flee. Penny Peabody, a recurring character in Riverdale, is also known to traffic drugs in Greendale, but she knows well enough not to get caught there after midnight. The town is home to Sabrina Spellman along with her friends and family. Greendale is much darker, brutal, and terrifying in comparison to its counterpart. It's the closest to hell, allowing many witches, demons, and other unholy creatures to reside there. Riverdale, where the main story of the show takes place, is home to Archie Andrews, his friends, and his family. The famous Pop's Chocolate Shop is located here and is the main attraction for many tourists that are staying here or passing by. Also has an unhealthy amount of evil, but with a twist. This town has gangsters and robbers that will rob and shoot you, unlike Greendale, which has spellcasting witches and demons. Sabrina, living in a neighboring town to Riverdale, is the reason why she frequently makes appearances on the show. We love watching her and the Archie gang team up. Next up, we have the Witches of Riverdale. A year and a half ago, Netflix decided to conclude one of the most popular shows on the streaming service. The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina ended after 4 seasons in 2020. The show ended with Sabrina sacrificing her life to save the town of Greendale and her lover killing himself to be with her in the hereafter. A bold move, to be honest, killing a protagonist like that, but that's not the last fans saw of the teenage witch. Kiernan Shipka reprised her role as Sabrina and appeared in Riverdale for the first time in December during a special 5-episode event. She was there in an episode titled The Witching Hour to help Cheryl help her grandmother pass into the next world. Now, she has made her second appearance on the show in an episode titled The Witches of Riverdale, which was a crossover between the two shows. The previous episode marked the death of many main characters in the show, such as Archie, Tony, Jughead, Dagwood, and Fangs. These firstborns of the show were killed in a plague for which Percival Pickens is responsible. In the last episode, Cheryl had no other choice but to contact a fellow witch, the only person who could resurrect these people and save the day, Spellman, as many of you might have guessed. To create a coven for the resurrection, Sabrina recruited Cheryl, Heather, Veronica Lodge, Betty Cooper, and Tabitha Tate. She stated that since she had also died once, she had developed a specialty in death magic. As we all know by now, when witches are involved, death is never final. As Sabrina arrives in town, she makes a desperate attempt to try and convince the souls of the people who have died to return to their dead bodies from heaven to complete the resurrection. They don't budge because of the perfect lives they have there. Jughead is a successful comic book writer. Betty and Archie are married and have a family. And Tony and Fangs have made a peace treaty with the rival gang. All of this seems so perfect, but it unfortunately wasn't real. She makes the new witches in the coven try to contact the souls of the dead and try to convince them to come back. They fail and stop after many efforts, and Sabrina comes up with another plan. Cheryl can use her pyrokinesis to phoenix them back against their will, according to Plan C, which Sabrina pulls out of her bag. The dead rise from the ashes when Cheryl sets all the bodies on fire in Riverdale's mines, even though it doesn't make sense because they have long since passed away. She also brings back her deceased brother Jason and his wife Polly, who is also Betty's deceased sister. Man, that was one crazy episode. Although some things didn't make sense, we still want more. But how is Sabrina still alive? As we talked about earlier, Sabrina sacrificed herself at the end of the last season of her show to save her town, and her lover drowned himself to be with her in the hereafter. According to the crossover episode, Nick drowned himself, it appears, for reasons other than to spend all of eternity with Sabrina. Instead, he gave her his life in exchange. Sabrina was able to leave once he had brought himself to the sweet hereafter. Unfortunately, Spellman didn't go much farther in her explanation. There are undoubtedly still unanswered questions. Did she leave the sweet hereafter without putting up a fight as to why Nick did did what he did, that doesn't sound like the Sabrina we know and love. We hope there are more Riverdale and the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina crossovers in the future so that the questions that have been left unanswered can be answered. Also, because Kiernan Shipka's on-screen chemistry with the Riverdale actors and actresses is a treat to watch. Now for some other news. First off is the iconic 1960s look. In Riverdale and its spin-off programs Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and Katie Keene, the popular Archie comics characters have been loosely adapted. In terms of tone and plot, Riverdale and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina have followed the Archie horror model, whereas Katie Keene adopted a more musical, comedic tact. The primary Archie comics universe has a classic 1960s aesthetic, and both Riverdale and Chilling Adventures of Sabrina have dabbled in it, but the characters themselves have mostly maintained a contemporary appearance to avoid becoming stale. The more recognizable appearances of the characters have occasionally been hinted at via dream sequences, parallel realms, items, clothes, and in the cast of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the classic comic book version of Sabrina that was shown in the introduction. In the latest episode, Sabrina travels to the sweet hereafter, where everything along with some character appearances have been presented as the same as in the original comics. Jughead is depicted in the sweet hereafter as having his more recognizable appearance, with the infamous S sweater, a paper crown on his head, and most notably, a burger in his hand. He also produces vintage Archie comics as a final touch. As for Sabrina, in what has become a classic comic book panel, Sabrina is sitting on the floor of her living room, periodicals and comics scattered all around her, listening to Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered on a vinyl record. This is the first appearance of Sabrina wearing a white top and red pants. The character traveled to and from Riverdale on a broomstick, which was Sabrina's main mode of transportation in the 1960s and 1970s. To complete the look of her vintage comic book counterpart, seeing them in their actual costumes took us back to the time when we used to read Archie comics. Good old memories. And now we have Julie Plec keeping herself busy post-Legacies. Creator Julie Plec appears to be putting the CW completely in the rearview mirror now that Legacies has concluded the Vampire Diaries saga, at least for the time being. She has gradually expanded her show selection over the past few months, adding new shows like the Vampire Academy adaptation's additional vampire series to her resume. Currently, she is also developing a whopping 5 additional new shows at Universal Television, in addition to other projects that are already in the works. Plec's production umbrella, My So-Called Company, which has been based at Universal Television for the past 2 years, has 5 new written shows in development. She has 4 other projects in development, and perhaps more on the way as a part of her total arrangement with Universal TV, which includes the new shows Clifton, Douglas Medical, Freeman, Stay Gold, and This Savage Song. These shows sound amazing, and we can't wait to see what they look like. Let's look at the CW's announcement of the premiere date for Tom Swift, a Nancy Drew spinoff series. The Tom Swift freshman series finale has been scheduled. The CW canceled the Nancy Drew spinoff, which had only made its premiere at the end of May. The network has now made known when the series' final episode will air. The Tom Swift series finale will air on the CW on Tuesday, August 2nd at 9 p.m. The studio that is producing Tom Swift reportedly wants to find it a new home so that it may continue since they enjoy the creative direction the show is taking. The low viewership is the reason for the cancellation. We hope the show ends up surviving. We've enjoyed it so far. That's a wrap for this video. What did you think of this episode? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.